And I'm against that. You know, it's a reasonably nothing like Greenland, but it's a reasonably important area of the globe.
And here's another cracker. Pressure growing on the United States to completely torpedo the Chagos Islands deal. I'll speak to one of the key figures meeting US officials today to find out what Washington really thinks of Starmer's surrender deal. And we have a major exclusive to break on this in just a...
Here we go again.
Melania has hit the big screen worldwide today, offering a rare insight into the First Lady's life. GB News has seen it, and there's more beneath the surface that you might expect. More on that later. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Moving on to our main news this evening, and a warning, this next segment will contain distressing content. Today I saw probably one of the worst videos I've ever seen of a left-wing sneering liberal apparently pretending not to know about the rape and murder of British women at the hands of illegal migrants.
Just know that a load of women and young girls are walking around, even in the day, with alarms. They've taken self-defence classes, and they are just genuinely worried.
Why?
Because there's been quite a few rumours that a few of the migrants have already escaped, so and they're heading towards Uckfield.
There are rumours. I mean, I'm not aware that there's anything to escape from. They have free passage in and out of the camp, don't they? They're not kept captive there. I mean, that was the case.
No, so they're not kept captive. But obviously, all of the residents in Kroger are just so worried about them possibly coming nearer to the town and harming all the women.
Why would that be the case, Lucy?
Well, if you're not familiar, that man there is Channel 5's Matt Allwright. He's an insulated man who lives in a very nice house indeed in Leafy, Oxfordshire, who claims not to know why women and girls would be worried about 500 random young men from foreign countries roaming their streets. Matt is either too thick to understand why women would say they're concerned about that, or he's doing that typical left-wing thing where they pretend not to know what you're talking about. It went on.
I mean, you have men in Kroger? You have men in Kroger already. What's different about these men?
I think it's just like other people that have said, obviously, like that they're dangerous. They're not. I don't know, it's just all the other rumours that have gone around all the other towns. I think it's just scaring all the women and their men for their wives.
I mean, with respect, though, Lucy, those rumours, you can choose to believe them or not. Have there been any recorded incidences of violence or aggression or sexual misconduct or anything like that reported?
What a joke that guy is. Have there been any recorded incidents? Well, let's see, shall we? That Matthew Allwright clip did the rounds today. On the very morning, a small boat migrant was handed a life sentence for the savage murder of a young British mother who worked at his asylum hotel. You've probably heard of the story because it was so horrific. Rhiannon Skye White, who was 27 and a mother to a 3-year-old boy, well, she was followed on her journey home from work by a Sudanese migrant, his name is Deng Majek, who stabbed her 23 times with a screwdriver, including fatal blows to the skull. Majek was described as demonic in court today.
You continued to deny that you were Rhiannon's assailant, showed no empathy for the victim, and provided a limited account of your life in Sudan before your departure.
Now, unfortunately for us, because we don't have capital punishment in this country anymore, Majek will spend a minimum of 29 years behind bars at taxpayer expense. Very good. Rhiannon's little boy, however, is now growing up without a mother, all because third worlders are breaking into our country and people pretend there's absolutely no problem with importing scumbags like Majek. Rhiannon, though, isn't the only example. In Epping last year, Hadush Kibatu sexually assaulted a child and a woman before he was finally convicted and deported last year. Fake Pakistani asylum seeker Sheraz Malik was last year convicted of raping an 18-year-old woman in Sutton in Ashfield in Nottinghamshire. Afghan teenagers Jan Jahanzeb and Isra Nizal were convicted in December, just gone, of raping a 15-year-old girl in a public garden in Leamington Spa. Syrian boat migrant Fawaz Al-Samal followed a young woman leaving a nightclub in Cardiff in Wales where he strangled her and sexually assaulted her. I could go on and on and on for hours. So when people ask what the problem is, like Matthew Allwright, I say, open your damn eyes, smell the coffee, because the rape of Britain is well underway. Now, some people watching this, maybe Matthew himself, might say, yeah, but white English people commit crimes too. Yeah, of course they do, and those misfits are our problem. So why would you purposefully import more degenerates when you don't have to, especially when those men come from cultures and countries that have a completely warped perception of women and acceptable standards of behaviour towards them? Matthew is a seasoned journalist, so he surely must know all this stuff anyway. Or is that just too much of a coward to say it out loud? So why does all this matter? How is it connected to America? Well, in the United States, they've been experiencing the same problems too. Uncontrolled mass illegal immigration, importing the worst of humanity to be let free on the streets to kill Americans. Laken Riley, the most infamous case. She was a 22-year-old university student who was murdered during an attempted sexual assault 2 years ago by a 26-year-old Venezuelan national who broke into America in 2022. Jose Ibarra was his name. He was apprehended at the southern border when he broke in, but he was then released into the United States because there was no space in detention centres while his immigration case was pending. He was literally set free to kill, just like some illegal migrants in Britain. At the very least, the British government should be detaining these so-called asylum seekers in secure facilities until the plane is ready to deport them. They shouldn't be allowed to leave, and they shouldn't be allowed to roam the streets of Great Britain, which is exactly what's happening here in the US, the detention. Because the Department of Homeland Security, which is basically America's Home Office, they've just been snapping up industrial warehouses across 8 different states to use as detention and deportation sites for illegals. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars buying these sites now. Let's be clear, America isn't messing around. Too much blood has been shed at the hands of illegal migrants, too many families have had their lives destroyed, and too many Americans have now had enough of it. It's time our pathetic leaders and media back in Britain took note before tragedy inevitably strikes again. Well, with me now is John Rudat, who was slashed across the face in Germany by a Syrian migrant. John, good evening. Thank you for your company. Just first of all, remind us, please, if you will, if you don't mind as well, just remind our viewers and listeners about your own experience in Germany. What happened to you?
Of course, back in August 24th, 2025, I was on the Dresden tram riding the Line 7 with my friend and my host brother, just visiting my host family as a nice vacation when I witnessed a woman being assaulted and physically harassed by an illegal migrant. I intervened in the situation, subdued the migrant, but while I was handling that case, another one, not even related to the incident, came up by my right and slashed me in the face with a knife.
John, what do you make of when you hear incidents like the one I've just talked about? Rhiannon Skywhite, a young mother, she had a 3-year-old son who is now 6. That poor boy will be growing up without his mum. And there are many, many other examples all across the United States, all across America, the Great Britain as well. What do our political leaders need to be doing to stop this nonsense?
Our political leaders need to be taking accountability for their lack of action. Because what's happened now and what's becoming our responsibility as citizens not only to cover but to try to prevent is a mass epidemic of crime, knife crime, and attacks. I mean, even we've seen since 2014 an 86% rise in knife crime in the UK. That's insane. That's insane. Any logistical thinker, any logistical leader would approach that with great caution and great accountability to fix and turn around that change. But we're not seeing that kind of action nowadays, are we?
Yeah, and John, for me, it seems rather simple. I see no reason why we can't do what they do here in the United States, which is detain illegal migrants. They shouldn't be allowed to roam the streets. And when I explain to Americans here in Washington, D.C. and beyond that, yeah, not only do we not detain them like you do here, you put them in detention centres, we give them hotels, we give them spending money. They get bus passes to go into town. They can buy alcohol and cigarettes and do what they want. They can basically roam the streets to do what the hell they want. We don't know who they are, where they came from, what their intentions are. We don't know anything about them. As an American, does that just sound insane to you? What's your take?
It sounds insane to me. If we're honest, everything that you just described sounds like a horror movie. It sounds like a nightmare. It sounds like something that everybody would agree that's crazy exists. But the fact of the matter is that's the reality for people in the UK. That's the reality for people in the US. And I'm glad the US, like you mentioned, is taking those steps to take that illegal migration and isolate that potential crime. Because we've seen, as we've seen in the UK, as we've seen in the USA, that prevents these things from happening. It keeps them from happening. And if we can prevent that crime, prevent that violence, prevent that death, and take accountability for that, we're going to. And I can only hope, like you just said, the UK does the same and follows suit.
Yeah, and John, just before I let you go, lots of people in the UK are looking across to America and looking at what's going on with illegal migration. Completely stamped out. The southern border's closed. It was like a sieve. It's now a proper border. Nobody's crossing. I went down there to Arizona to see for myself. And of course, ICE is doing its job with some controversy, but 2.5 million illegals left the country last year. Are you happy with the way the administration is handling illegal migration in America?
Of course, and I and so many other Americans are noticing the actual physical change, our cities loosening up, becoming safer, even traffic being reduced. Because when you take accountability for these kind of actions and you build the proper infrastructure like the United States has done, like you mentioned with ICE and with the detention centers, you keep the population safe. You keep the nationals safe from foreign nationals that are looking to do harm and looking to take advantage of their vulnerabilities. And I'm glad the U.S. is doing that.
John, thank you very much. Really appreciate your company. And just before I do let you go, how are you doing these days? Are you well? I mean, you look well. You sound like you're in good nick.
Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. Right now, actually, I'm working in America at a new push called Take America Back Tab. You can find us at jointab.us. It's a citizen servant push to take back America from these foreign national groups that are coming over, organizing and taking over our democratic infrastructure. I'm working hard, really back at it again, and I'm glad. I'm feeling healthy, just like you mentioned, and hopefully I can continue to do this great work here.
Good man. Sounds good, John. I think we need to take a leaf out of your book. Thank you very much, John. John Rudat joining us live on the Late Show Live. Hopefully we'll catch up soon. Thank you, mate. On the issue of illegal migration, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has previously said these small boat crossings are utterly unacceptable and the vile people smugglers behind them are wreaking havoc on our borders. Protecting the UK border is my priority as Home Secretary, and I'll explore all options to restore order to our immigration system. GBNews has also approached Matt Allwright's team for comment, but are yet to hear back. gbnews.com/your say. Let me know your thoughts on that, including Matt Allwright. My panel are with me now. We've got Angelina McCarthy and Hilary Fordwich. Welcome, ladies. Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Very quickly, Hilary, when you look at cases like Rhiannon Sky White, who we just spoke about, does it just blow your mind that these small boat migrants are allowed to just roam the streets of Britain freely?
Oh yes, absolutely. We've talked about this before. I consider it literally an invasion, and I've used the analogy. Could you imagine, even the generation that fought in the Second World War? Could you imagine giving the Nazis free housing and free food? And that's ridiculous. I mean, we had that old veteran who said he just doesn't know that it would be worth fighting today because the country isn't what he fought for. Something else I'd just like to add, when you mentioned about free housing, free food in the UK, importantly, I know somebody who was in a catering business, and the business was hired to then provide food for the prisons. He actually quit because he was so disgusted at all the halal meals that were being provided, and they had all these choices, and he said he just absolutely could not believe how they were catering to all of these different religions and everything in the prisons.
Yeah.
He said it was extremely expensive, and he couldn't believe what the company had to do and what they were being funded to do.
Of course, you've used that Nazi comparison before. I don't quite agree with that. I get your point, but I don't quite agree with it. So I mean, you can't compare migrants to Nazis, Angela.
No, not the migrants to Nazis, but it's a typical invasion. Could you imagine people that came illegally, giving them free housing and food? Sorry, Angelina.
I just don't think that there's an invasion here, right? Because it's people coming in and it's the Brits welcoming them.
It is an invasion.
So it is, but it is your government that's welcoming them in right now.
Well, they claim they want to stop it, so they're not actively saying, yeah, guys, come in.
They're giving them free housing and free food and free cell phones and free bus passes, and like we said, they can go into the villages and buy alcohol. So I think it's an invasion. They're not wanted by the public.
Look, I'm someone who's always said that the Democrats have done this wrong in America, where they deny that the problem's even there. The problem definitely exists. It's influx of immigrants and overwhelming social welfare programs and costing citizens money.
Correct.
Now, of course, not properly vetting people. Clearly, there's a crime problem in the UK, and it's quite alarming every time I come on this show.
What do you make of that guy? Sorry to interject. That guy who showed you, Matthew Allwright, who's a Channel 5 former BBC man, actually condescending to a woman, saying, "Well, what are you worried about?" As if she's some stupid, silly little woman. What are you worried about? Why do you care that
that
random migrant men have moved
He
here?
does not have to worry about that. He probably doesn't have to worry. Do you know 1 in 4 American women have actually been raped? And I think as a woman is crazy if you think you're safe on basically almost any streets anywhere, let alone all the illegals that if their very first act is to do something illegal, to come into this country illegally, and in the UK the same thing, the likelihood they'll do something else illegal is very high.
What do you make of that guy? You don't know him, but what do you make of that kind of attitude?
Again, I think it's that very dismissive attitude, which you often see on the left here in America, which I completely disagree with, because the left's approach is, hey, let's just dismiss it. If the right is promoting this or promoting a certain agenda, then we have to dismiss it, which is not the case. There's usually when there's smoke, there's fire. There clearly is an issue here. There is an issue going along, and I think it's completely dismissive and a bit arrogant.
Yeah, Matthew Allwright is one of those typically far left, well, he's not far left, left of centre, just oblivious to what's going on with real people. He's not a real person. He's never probably had, he went to private school, he went to university, he's worked in TV for decades, getting paid quite handsomely. He lives in Oxfordshire in a nice house. He's not exposed to the consequences of uncontrolled mass migration. Anyway, gbnews.com/your say. Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
We have a lot of very big, very powerful ships sailing to Iran right now, and it would be great if we didn't have to use them.
This on a break now?
Iran has just accused President Trump of making belligerent threats. Oh dear, will this be the final thing to tip Washington over the edge? But also tonight.
Now they're looking to essentially just do a lease and sell it, and I'm against that. It's a reasonably nothing like Greenland, but it's a reasonably important area of the globe.
Stay tuned, ladies and gents. There's a fresh and exclusive development in the Chagos Islands surrender deal. I'll be sitting down next with somebody working alongside the Trump administration, trying to alert them on the severity of this deal to put an end to it all. That's next. Don't go anywhere on The Late Show Live.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I want to show the people what it takes to go from private citizen to being a First Lady again.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. That is Melania Trump, the First Lady. Her new film, Melania, has hit the big screens today worldwide, and GB News has seen it, and there's more beneath the surface than you might expect. We'll be getting stuck into that in just a tick. But first of all, big news, brace yourselves. GB News can exclusively reveal that the US State Department will be writing to the UK government imminently with their new policy position on the Chagos Islands surrender deal. That follows a major intervention, of course, from President Trump. Joining me in Washington now is the spokesperson for Friends of British Overseas Territories, Rob Midgley. Rob, you have been a busy boy the past couple of days. You've been at the State Department today, I understand. What's going on? Is this the beginning of the end of the Chagos surrender?
Well, I absolutely hope so, but it's important to remember why we're actually here this week, because the UK government haven't taken Trump's Truth Social post seriously enough to say, yes, that's diplomacy, yes, that's official policy.
Just remind us of the posts.
So he posted about 2 weeks ago now, saying the Chagos Islands was an act of stupidity and the deal shouldn't be going through, but the UK hasn't taken that seriously enough. So what they have been taking seriously enough is Marco Rubio's post from May 2025. So they keep referring it back, and number 10 is definitely spinning right now, saying, well, he said that then.
What was the post from Rubio?
His post solidified the American agreement to the deal. So they obviously want to go back to that and say, well, he said that then, but we haven't had an official diplomatic channel message since then. So the main aim this week has to be finding out from the State Department what the official stance is now. So we finally had a meeting with the pen holders in the State Department who confirmed to me today that they will be imminently writing officially to the FCDO to confirm their new policy stance towards Chagos Islands, which will be following Donald Trump's stance from Truth Social. So I've got a few notes here that, if you don't mind, I'll just run through. So to start with, they didn't buy the British legal argument. So the British had been saying you have to hand over the Chagos Islands because it goes against the International Telecommunications Union. We can't run the electromagnetic field or whatever it was. And that also the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas, according to them, you have to give over sovereignty. So they said they've looked into all the legal stuff now, and it's complete rubbish. So because there are military exemptions, Article 48 and 298, which exempt the Chagos Islands from being held accountable by the UNCLOS.
So when the UK government, when Labour went to the US last year and said, we've got this Chagos situation, we've checked it all out, guys, we've done the hard work for you, the US just took them at their word, did they?
Yes, they didn't mention the military exemptions involved. So the US...
So they've been duped?
Yes, so the US are angry about this. There's a real palpable anger from the US side, from the DC side, from the senators, that the UK, the embassy, and specifically, they are very angry about the embassy have not told them about these military exemptions, and that is what we made clear today. And they have now turned around and said, okay, well, if you haven't taken the Truth Social post as our policy, we will now do it officially straight to the Foreign Office.
Wow.
So expect some sort of dialogue in the next week, I would say, about their new stance.
That's bombshell. So the US government is going to be writing to the UK government saying, we were duped, we don't like this deal, there's a lack of security.
Yes.
And is this the beginning of the end then, surely? Because David Lammy and Starmer have always said, if the Americans aren't on board, we won't do it.
So there's two more points, if I've got time.
Yes.
So the UK is actually trying to change the 1966 agreement. The US have said they're trying to change it, which states the US recognises UK sovereignty. So I have told them specifically they cannot change that 1966 agreement because that means they remove their own veto from the deal. So that's really, really critical. Secondly, they are keeping razor eyes on who is on the pitch in UK politics at the moment. They recognise Nigel Farage is in the stalls at the moment. So they want to see what will happen in 2 years' time. So expect this to either be killed or paused indefinitely, so they can wait for Nigel Farage to go in and kill this officially.
Wow.
And also, on the back of that, we made them aware about other security concerns for nuclear stances that Mauritius has come out to say no nuclear weapons will be allowed on the Chagos Islands, which has absolutely horrified them at these prospects. And also the fact that Chinese inspectors may be allowed to go onto the Chagos Islands to check for those weapons according to the Pender-Lindbergh agreement, which is just absolutely bonkers. And I made this really clear to senators and specifically Senator Kennedy, who is leading the charge in the Senate for further scrutiny on this. So expect a double attack, one from the State Department and one from the Senate in the next week or so.
That's incredible. So, I mean, for me, this is the biggest Chagos story in the past, I'd say, year or so. But I want to know who particularly duped the Americans. Was it just diplomats? Was David Lammy? Who was the foreign secretary at the time? Was it? It was Lammy at the time.
So obviously the embassy take orders from the Foreign Office. So the Foreign Office, the embassy here, had been schmoozing the officials here without putting anything down in writing. It's all been over the promise, the word, and they've completely fallen for it. They've fallen for that British schmooze. So they feel really angry and duped by this whole thing now. They feel betrayed about it.
Yeah, Nigel Farage said something similar a few days ago. He said that the Americans have been duped. Again, this just backs that up. Rob, incredible work. Lots of our viewers writing in on gbnews.com/yoursay now saying, great stuff. This has to be the end of the Chagos giveaway. I knew Starmer had spun it to the USA. He's the most dishonest PM ever. I guess it's not Starmer personally, but look, he's the boss. Yeah. He's the CEO.
I mean, Trump can do this very well now. He can package this up and say, this is a Biden deal, and I'm putting an end to it. Yeah. And that will be the end of it now.
Wow, bombshell. Rob, thank you so much. So that letter is going to be arriving sometime next week, you think? The US State Department writing to the Foreign Office in the UK saying, guys, we don't like this deal whatsoever. This will be the end of it. Rob, thank you very much. That's Rob Midgley from Friends of British Overseas Territories. Stay with us. We'll catch up soon, Rob. gbnews.com/yoursay. Loads of comments about Chagos. Such good news. Because let's be honest, the Chagos surrender never made sense, did it? So much dodgy stuff surrounding it. The old Mauritian Prime Minister getting nicked with a bunch of British visas, cash on him as well. None of it makes sense, but this could be the beginning of the end. Good news. Right, let's take a quick look at some of the other main news here in America. A judge has ruled that Luigi Mangione will not face the death penalty if he's convicted of the killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. He's pleaded not guilty to all federal and state charges. Elsewhere, Queen guitarist Brian May says the band will not be touring the US, saying it's become a, quote, dangerous place. It follows concerns about extra border checks and political tensions over the Trump administration's immigration clampdown. Meanwhile, to some news out of Hollywood now.
What else could we be forgetting?
Oh, this is really sad news. Catherine O'Hara, the Emmy-winning actor who starred as Kevin's mother in Home Alone, has died, aged 71. A statement from the Creative Artists Agency says she passed away following a brief illness. Elsewhere, back in Washington. I love this when I saw it today. President Trump has signed an executive order to bring IndyCar racing to the streets of Washington, D.C. this summer. Yes, the event, dubbed the America 250 Grand Prix, will form part of celebrations marking 250 years of the United States, with officials hoping it will rev up tourism and the local economy. The race is expected to take place in August. I am so excited for that to happen. I hope it happens. It's going to be epic. I've not been as excited about anything in recent history as I am now. Can you imagine those cars racing around Washington, D.C.? Cannot wait. Right, coming up next on The Late Show Live.
Tell us why you're doing this.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there.
Breaking tonight, former CNN anchor Don Lemon has been released after his arrest for alleged involvement in anti-ICE protests. And tonight, the situation in Minneapolis has just taken a major turn. I'll bring you the details on that story in just a second. But also tonight.
Today, we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images.
Another bombshell story. They're all coming in tonight. The US Justice Department has just released millions of files linked to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Bill Gates is involved. There's mention of STDs, Russian girls, the former Prince Andrew. It's all coming out, and the fallout could be damning for some of the world's most powerful figures. Don't go anywhere. Back in a tick on The Late Show Live.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock, only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversations.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dordme, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images. In total, that means that the department produced approximately 3.5 million pages in compliance with the Act.
Boy, oh boy, what a night of breaking news. This time, more news from Washington. The US Justice Department has released more than 3 million pages of documents related to the late sex offender and paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Among those in the releases is an email exchange between Epstein and the Duke, thought to be Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, of course, no guesses, has previously denied any claims of wrongdoing, of course, but in the email, which is on your screen now if you're watching on television, Epstein offered to introduce the former prince to a beautiful 26-year-old Russian woman 2 years after Epstein was convicted for soliciting a minor for prostitution. Dear oh dear. Meanwhile, it's also emerged that Epstein sent £10,000 to Peter Mandelson's partner, so Lord Mandelson, the former British ambassador, actually, who's just been kicked out in disgrace, to his former partner, Reinaldo Avila da Silva, in 2009. In a statement tonight, Lord Mandelson has previously said he's been very clear about his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein and that he's nothing to add. The emails also show that at one stage, Jeffrey Epstein traded on his friendship with Lord Mandelson to promise a friend to visit Downing Street and the House of Lords. In the files released tonight, an email also claims that Bill Gates, and this is mental, Bill Gates allegedly contracted a sexually transmitted disease after sleeping with Russian girls. He also asked for antibiotics to give to Melinda Gates, his now ex-wife. It's worth noting that appearing in the files does not imply wrongdoing. Joining me in Washington is my panel now, political commentator Hilary Forbich and the journalist and broadcaster Angelina McCarthy. Well, ladies. Where do we start? Bill Gates, the health-conscious vaccine freak who wanted everyone injected, apparently, allegedly, doesn't care that much about health because he's been, allegedly, sleeping with Russian girls without protection and getting STDs, allegedly.
Well, this has actually been, obviously, a suspicion that people have had for many years. These have been rumours for years because, obviously, due to his divorce, we heard about this. And I think, particularly when we talked about that political access, you know what they say? They say that politicians and nappies should be changed frequently, and both for the same reason. They're both full of, and it shows you that these sort of trades and this sort of money going past in the background between Mendelsohn and these creeps, it shows you what's been really going on.
Oh, Angelina, juicy.
I mean, it is a hard one because there is a lot of information that is being mass dumped out there, and what kind of checks are we doing here, right? Because there were those comments that came out against Trump. Bill Gates came out and even denied this. He said that this was a lie. So you have a lot of attacks coming out against very powerful figures. So it really does need its own investigation to authenticate what is real and what is not real.
With regard to Trump, though, I will say he had a definitive falling out with Epstein in 2004 before he was prosecuted, and obviously it was to do to a real estate deal, and also because supposedly President Trump was really annoyed because Epstein was basically poaching masseuses from his Mar-a-Lago spa, but there was not an involvement, and there's been no actual evidence of any involvement from President Trump in anything nefarious. And I would bet you that if the Democrats had anything, if there were anything in that file at all, at all, they would have released it previously.
I've said all the time, logic would say they tried to kill him, they tried to impeach him, they tried to jail him, they debanked him, they tried to shut his businesses down to stop him. If he was anything incriminating in Epstein files with regards to Trump, it would have come out by now. Also, there's a new email that has been released in this dump from Epstein confirming, or saying at least, that President Trump never had a massage.
That's right, yes.
With him. Never had a massage.
In the documents,
quote unquote.
Yes.
And that's true what you say about, I mean, Virginia Giuffre was one of the girls who worked as a masseuse in Mar-a-Lago for Trump, and then Epstein came along and poached her for his seedy little business.
And in her book, she has nothing but positive things to say about President Trump. She never said anything negative about him or any of his activities.
Well, that's my concern. There's so much information in these files, and a lot of damning information to a lot of different people. And so how do we comb through all these documents to give some validity or see what is true, what is not true that's going on over
here? All right, let's get the thoughts of journalist and broadcaster Christo Foufas, who joins us live from London. Hello, Christo. Hope you're well. What's your take on this? I love it. It's a great story. The gift that keeps on giving.
It is. And I think to your contributors in the studio there, I think they're right to exercise caution in some of what we're hearing. Certainly the Trump allegations and the Bill Gates stuff in there as well, because let's not forget that, of course, a lot of these files are actually what the FBI has investigated based on what people have come forward with, but none of it's been proven. Where I think that there is a much more of a smoking gun is regarding the former Prince Andrew, because, of course, we were told in the absolutely infamous, disastrous Newsnight interview that he only went back to New York to end his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, and that, they weren't really close. But of course, what this shows is actually right up until the point where he went to New York to supposedly end the friendship, they were in touch an awful lot. He also was offered a trustworthy Russian beauty, a 26-year-old, in this email. These emails look very, very incriminating. Jeffrey Epstein invited to Buckingham Palace. This was a month after his release from house arrest as well. So none of this really aligning with what Prince Andrew, as he was at the time, said in the Newsnight interview. And these are actual emails that look very much like they are from Prince Andrew. And I think obviously this speaks to what the palace must have known was going to come out, which was why they took decisive action. If you remember rightly, none of this and the subsequent stuff we got after Prince Andrew was stripped of his title, none of this was in the public domain, but certainly I would think the palace got a heads up that there was going to be much more stuff concerning Prince Andrew that contradicted what he'd said in previous interviews, and that was why I think it came from Prince William, actually. We got this decisive action from the palace.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, good points, Christo. Let me speak now to law professor Jeremy Paul, who can give some expertise on this. Jeremy, what's your take on this latest release of, I mean, it's just millions of files, all the detail now still filtering out on social media. Should we take it with a pinch of salt, all this stuff?
I would say a heaping boulder rather than just a pinch. I mean, at the moment, you're talking about raw documents with denials immediately coming out. And it's just going to take time to sort through them. I mean, I think the more interesting thing is that they were released late on a Friday, on the same day that 2 journalists were arrested, a new Fed chair was named, the president is making noises about more military action in Iran, and the president called for former President Obama to be arrested. So the Department of Justice certainly did a good job of releasing these at a time when people are going to be paying much less attention than usual. And it's just going to take a lot of time for people to go through and sort through these documents. And I think that I've always said from the very beginning that it's extremely unlikely that the Department of Justice would release information that was damaging to the president. Things just don't work that way. But what will happen is that investigators who know about the case will slowly pour through all these documents and try to piece things together. And we may learn a little more about what I think everybody agrees is a horrible, miserable, wretched scandal, of which Jeffrey Epstein was the ringleader. And sadly, he's passed away and will no longer be able to be held accountable for his crimes.
Jeremy, thank you so much. Appreciate your contributions on that. As you said, there's just so much to wade through, particularly, I mean, I'm just being salacious here because I'm a former tabloid man, but Bill Gates, STDs, Russian girls, I mean, sparks my interest. Who knows? Melinda Gates did say, of course, that she, very briefly, you got 20 seconds, Jeremy. Melinda Gates did divorce Bill Gates because of his friendship with Epstein, right?
I have heard that, but I think that just because that happened doesn't mean that these allegations are true.
Yeah, all right, well said. Jeremy Paul, thank you very much. Hopefully speak to you again soon on the Let's Show Live. Right, gbnews.com/you'll say. I'll get stuck into your comments fairly shortly, but still ahead, former CNN anchor has been arrested for his alleged involvement. Don Lemon is his name. You may be familiar with him. He's been arrested in anti-ICE protests and a case that's tearing America apart. He's been released this evening. I'm a bit iffy about it. I don't agree with arresting journalists, but some of you on your side disagree. Plus, there's just been a major development in Minneapolis. I'll bring you that shortly. But first,
this is Brexit Britain. We voted to take back control of our borders.
Tonight, it's officially 6 years, can you believe it, since Britain left the European Union. The Daily Express have a rather patriotic front page tomorrow. But have we got the Brexit you envisioned? I think I know the answer to that. No. This is the Late Show Live, only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/your say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/your say, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Ben Leo. Did you know it's been 6 years to the day that we finally left the gravy train that is the European Union, the EU SSR? My panel are with me now in Washington, political commentator Hilary Fordwich and journalist and broadcaster Angelina McCarthy. And in London, I'm not sure if he's a Brexit backer or a Remainer. Christo Foufas, I reckon you voted Remain, Christo. What's the truth?
A Remainer, a Ramona in chief. For
yeah, I knew you were.
Quite a few years, actually.
It's been 6 years to the day. Have we got the Brexit we were promised, Christo?
Well, I mean, I've got to hand it to Boris Johnson, because what he managed to deliver was a Brexit that upset people who voted Remain and a Brexit that upset people that voted Leave. So, I mean, look, I didn't want us to leave the EU, though I do completely see a lot more clearly why people voted to leave the EU than I did at the time. I have to say that. But at least I have seen, at least I do understand that at least if we were going to leave the EU, that we should take advantage of some of the benefits we could have had by making much lower taxes, by not aligning ourselves with the EU on various policies like climate and some of those things. That was the whole point. We were going to be Singapore on Thames, weren't we? And we actually didn't get that at all. And we are still aligned with the EU on many things that I think people get annoyed by. So, yeah, we haven't got any kind of Brexit. We've shafted fishermen, we've shafted small businesses, but we've also left people who voted Leave feeling betrayed as well. So all round, it's been, I think, disastrous for everyone.
Well, Hilary Fordwich, Singapore on Thames, we ain't, because Singapore just clocked 5.7% GDP growth in the last quarter compared to the UK's, was it, 0.1%? So, yeah.
Yes, well, every 45 minutes a millionaire leaves the UK, so certainly they're not very happy with it at all. And what I would say is I think it's two things, really. I think it's not only are the French obviously still punishing the UK for Brexit, because obviously they're letting all the small boats come across, but also, don't forget, it's all the civil servants. It's those people in government that never wanted this. Also, I believe that you have a lot in, obviously, the British, establishment that didn't vote for Brexit necessarily, and they have not wanted to enact things. So I don't think you actually have Brexit. It's Brexit in name only. That's what I see, and that's what I think the British public is probably very disappointed about, because obviously the migrants and the small boat issue was not this vast and large in 2016.
Well, there is one thing that we can celebrate, I guess, Angelina, which is, I guess, Brexit was the inspiration for Trump. I think it buoyed a lot of voters here in America back in 2015 that actually, yeah, the underdog can win. You can do this. And President Trump credits Nigel Farage for giving him that inspiration and motivation for his campaign in 2016.
Yeah, definitely. It became a focus of isolationism, right? So Brexit really did change things fundamentally and politically. The idea that countries could separate and focus more on local level policies and isolate themselves a little bit more from the world order. But I guess my question to you now, Ben, would be, with Keir Starmer going over to China and making these new deals with China, will that help reinvigorate part of England's economy?
No. Well, let's ask Christo. I think we're cooked, Christo. You've got a £10 billion benefits bill for foreign nationals. You've got billions on asylum hotels. There's regulation through the roof. Nobody can get anything done. The highest tax burden in decades. On what planet, in what universe would you get growth in an economy, in a country like that, Christo?
Well, because we're being ruled by people who are, it's like sixth form politics. It's people who are more concerned with ideology than practicality. They see people who have a bit of money, or wealth creators and business people, they see them as evil and they want to get at them. And so they all go home at night thinking, that's brilliant. We've really managed to shaft those people who are business owners, without realizing actually that's why unemployment's going up. That's why people are leaving. And actually, if you tax people into oblivion, then of course no one is going out and spending money and the economy isn't growing. I mean, it's so unbelievably basic that I almost, it's staggering that these people are in charge, and they've moved themselves into this perverse position now where they're actually ruled by the backbenchers, and that's what every single motivation that they have is about. So whenever they come up with any kind of policy, even if it's the smallest cut in spending, the backbenchers don't let them do it. When they come up with a budget that we last saw, the backbenchers wanted the child benefit cap lifted, so it was a budget for them rather than a budget for people who pay taxes. So it's so unbelievably perverse. I don't understand how we're in this position, and I dread the next 3 years.
Well, and I would actually add to that, when you mentioned about the sixth form, I agree with you. Many sixth formers, they may actually work and have a job where they're actually paid naturally in the regular economy. And I would say one of the things I've always said in the US, and look at the success in terms of business-wise that President Trump is, and now that we have Walsh as the head of the Fed, I've always said I wish there could be a constitutional amendment in the US that you have to have run a business and made payroll to run for elected office. And I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, and our guests over in the UK, but I believe not one member of the Labour government has actually ever run a business. If you haven't run a business, you don't understand how to make payroll. And if you don't understand how to make payroll, you actually think that the government has money. The government doesn't have a single penny or a single pound. It's all our money. It's taxpayers' money. Well, and last but not least, with regard to Brexit, remember, it was President Obama who said that if the UK voted for Brexit, they would be at the back of the line with any kind of trade deals. And I think the UK was punished until President Trump came into office before the trade deal.
Last word, Christo, really quick.
It's what Thatcher used to say, and I think I seem to bring up Thatcher every single week, but she says there's no such thing as government money, it's only taxpayers' money, and that was the kind of climate we should have been operating in now. My dad came to the UK, I've spoken about this before, literally with nothing, and didn't take a penny from the state, but it was Thatcher's policies which laid the groundwork for someone who wasn't particularly educated and not particularly, aligned with being able to sort of start a business, but he did in that climate and did very well because the government was behind him and incentivised him rather than being against him, which this government is.
Thank you, mate. More coming up next on the Late Show Live. Don Lemon's been released from prison. See you in a sec.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There will be some sunshine around this weekend, but for a fair few it's going to be pretty limited, with often cloudy skies and further outbreaks of rain. Through this morning it's a wet picture across the eastern parts of Scotland, some persistent rain and some hill snow as well. Also outbreaks of rain across some parts of northern England, Wales and particularly western England. Further east, some drier, brighter, sunnier weather to be had, perhaps turning a bit cloudier and a bit wetter later on. Also a fair deal of dry weather towards the northwest of the UK. Temperatures around average for the time of year, just about getting into double figures towards the south. A few degrees lower than this further north, but here temperatures will be slightly higher than they have been through much of this week. As we go into this evening, we stick with the rather damp theme down the eastern side of Scotland, and that nagging southeasterly wind that we've had for so long continues as well. So that's going to make it feel quite raw at times if you're heading out later on. Drier, clearer skies towards western parts of Scotland and across parts of Northern Ireland too. Much of England and Wales is staying pretty cloudy with further outbreaks of rain, still perhaps clinging on to some clearer skies across parts of East Anglia and Kent. Then, as we go overnight, the cloud and the outbreaks of rain, well, they continue. They become a bit more widespread for many of us. So a fairly damp night to come, not much in the way of clear skies. As a result, unlike last night where there was a touch of frost around, where we saw some clear breaks, we're not really going to see any frost through tonight. Temperatures generally holding up a fair few degrees above freezing. And then as we go through tomorrow, there could be a few pockets of mist and fog here and there first thing, but generally we're looking at a largely cloudy start. There will be a few outbreaks of rain, perhaps the cloud breaking up and the rain being a little bit lighter than today. So should be some glimmers of sunshine, some drier weather, particularly across parts of Northern Ireland as we go through the afternoon. Temperatures, well, similar to today really. Bye-bye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good morning. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America.
Tell us why you're doing this.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there.
Former CNN anchor Don Lemon, a sanctimonious nose. He's been released after an earlier arrest after he entered a Minnesota church and filmed anti-immigration enforcement protesters as they disrupted the service. Meanwhile, activists are calling for further nationwide strikes in response to President Trump's immigration crackdown. It's still kicking off. It ain't dying out. More on that in just a tick.
We have a lot of very big, very powerful ships sailing to Iran right now, and it would be great if we didn't have to use them.
Iran defies Trump. The Islamic Republic says it will never give up nuclear missiles and urges the president to drop his belligerent threats. Is this the moment that pushes Washington over the edge?
Today we are producing more than 3 million pages, including more than 2,000 videos and 180,000 images.
They just keep coming. The Department of Justice has released millions more photos and videos linked to Jeffrey Epstein. We've got Bill Gates, we've got STDs, Russian women, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the lot. Huge allegations dropping tonight. We'll bring you all the latest.
Here we go again.
Melania has hit the big screen worldwide today, offering a rare insight into the First Lady's life. It's a new documentary/film. GB News has seen it, and there's more beneath the surface than you might expect. More on that a bit later on. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Remember, no breaks this hour. Good morning to you. Hope you're well. Thank you for your company. Welcome along to The Late Show Live. Joining me this evening in Washington is my panel, political commentator Hilary Fordwich and the journalist and broadcaster Angelina McCarthy. And in London, of course, is broadcasting royalty, Christo Foufas. Hello, Christo. Give us a wave. Give us a royal wave. There we go. Good man. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's move on to our main news story this hour. Former CNN host Don Lemon, I've just called him sanctimonious. He's maybe the most sanctimonious journalist going. He was arrested, but he's now been released and he's facing federal charges after he entered a Minnesota church and filmed anti-immigration enforcement protesters as they disrupted a service.
Tell us why you're doing this.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there.
Has been handed charges including conspiracy and interfering with the First Amendment rights of worshippers. And that disruption, which was just recorded, that took place because activists alleged that a pastor associated with the church also held a leadership role with ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Taking to social media tonight, the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, gave this clear message.
Make no mistake, under President Trump's leadership and this administration, you have the right to worship freely and safely. And if I haven't been clear already, if you violate that sacred right, we are coming after you.
Bondi there. In response to the charges, Abe Lau, who is Lemon's attorney, he called the arrest an unprecedented attack on the First Amendment, which includes freedom of the press, and said his client will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court. And tonight, CNN, Lemon's former employer, also criticised the arrest of their former main man, saying it raises profoundly concerning questions about press freedom. Meanwhile, protesters across America have been calling for no work, no school, no shopping as part of a nationwide strike to oppose President Trump's the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. By the way, just as a side point, I don't know what refusing to go to work or school or to the supermarket will do with regards to stopping migration. Seems a bit lame, but that's just me. It follows the recent shooting of Alex Preti, which has reignited tensions in Minneapolis. And tonight, the Justice Department has announced that it's opened a civil rights investigation into his death. There he is on screen now, that newly released video of him gobbing on ICE officers and kicking their car. Very good. That means they will now investigate whether Preti's constitutional rights, such as equal treatment under the law or protection from unlawful force, were violated by those ICE officers. Joining me tonight is my panel, Hilary Fordwich and Angelina McCarthy. Well, so much to unpack here. I intuitively don't agree with the rest of journalists. I think it's a bad thing. It's happened in the United Kingdom. The authorities had egg on their faces. But the question is, was Don Lemon actively engaged in that invasion of the church? Because he was part of the Signal group, for example, which was organising the protest. What's your thoughts, Angelina?
I mean, look, this is an interesting case because it's a violation of the First Amendment on both sides, right? Both sides are arguing the First Amendment. I think that John Lemon has a right to be there as a journalist to cover things. Like what happened at January 6th? There were a lot of journalists who entered the U.S. Capitol who were arrested and some who weren't arrested. Of course, those who were arrested were also let off their charges. So journalists do have a right to be there to cover protests. But whether or not the left or these protest groups are going about it the right way, I think I have a strong disagreement there, right? You can't entering churches and harassing people, entering restaurants, entering bars, and going up into people's faces and harassing them for doing their day-to-day jobs, whether they're bureaucrats or they're part of the system. It's not necessarily their fault. Their job is to carry out the orders of our government. It's not necessarily their fault on what the government's choosing to do. So should we hold it against them and hold it against them in their personal lives? I don't think that's fair to do.
Hillary, are you celebrating his arrest?
Well, Don Lemon, after my run-in with him years ago.
Oh, don't tell me about that.
Yes. Oh, well, actually, it was trending number 4 in the world on Twitter, and 89 networks mentioned it, including Tucker Carlson. No, he tried to ambush me. Actually, I was covering the Queen's funeral, and I was covering everything to do. Obviously, I've been on 4 times with him during that 10-day period, and then the night of the actual funeral, that he wanted me on again, and it was all the questions about the crowds and what had happened at the funeral. And in the end, he asked me about reparations, and what he didn't expect me to say was that it was actually, of course, the British that were the first to obviously abolish slavery, and that the African kings were the ones that rounded up their own people and had them on the beaches in cages. So I had my run-in with him.
I remember that. That was you, Hillary.
It was me.
Sorry, that's amazing.
That's all right, that's right. But now back to Don Lemon and this issue. This is a First Amendment issue, but he wasn't there reporting. That's the issue. It's the line that he crossed. He was not there just reporting. He was part of the agitators. He was part of this, literally a protest, because you can see him agitating. You can see him egging them on. They were disrupting a religious service, and the religious service, yes, the right to worship is protected in the First Amendment. So Angelina is absolutely right. They're both claiming the First Amendment, but Don Lemon and those other protesters are in the same group. He was not just reporting, he was part of that.
Is that how you pronounce his name? Don Lemon?
Lemon, but he is a lemon.
Right, yeah, he's a...
It is pronounced, supposedly, he pronounced it Don Lemon.
I mean, it shows the content of his character went. So just going back to your story with him,
yes.
He was hosting CNN and you were a guest on the channel.
I actually, still to this day, I kept the recording. I have the voicemail and I have the transcript of his booker just saying, Don would love, the exact words were, love to have you on again. No heads up it would be anything to do with reparations.
Right.
He thought he was going to blindside me.
And he was presenting.
And I wasn't, I had no preparation whatsoever. Luckily, I'm somewhat edified and I knew about Mansi Musa, I knew about the African kings, I'd read the book Barracoon, I knew about what was happened in Africa, and that the British, of course, were the last to stop slavery.
So he was presenting, you were a guest, he tried to ambush you, and he got on. I mean, Angelina, that just goes to show the content of the guy. He's a DEI-obsessed, far-left lunatic in my book. But again, intuitively, I don't agree with arresting journalists. However, if you see the footage of his invasion, well, he wasn't there, his accompaniment of the protesters in this church, he was asking very loaded questions. He was saying, well, should you be worshipping God and stuff like that when ICE agents are rounding people up on the streets? That's not very Christian and so on. So he had an agenda. He's always had an agenda because he worked for CNN, which some people call the communist news network. But he's always had an agenda, and I guess the decision for the DOJ here and prosecutors is, did he go in there as a neutral, unbiased journalist, or was he part of the group as an activist? Because it seemed to me, by his questioning, he was an activist.
Yeah, again, that's going to be a question that the DOJ has to figure out, and that Don Lemon has to either stand up for himself. But it is interesting as a journalist, like, would I go in and cover and start immediately grilling people? No, I wouldn't. I would stand backwards and I would film the scene of what's going on. I may wait outside, wait for people to come out, and then talk to them, ask them for their reaction.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would get into their faces like this in the middle of a service.
He got into their faces. What he did was he disrupted their right to worship under the First Amendment. That's the issue at the core of this.
Yeah, Christo, as well, as a journalist, I've done lots of these jobs before. You have a choice whether you go into these kind of things. You have a choice. You kind of make a decision, a professional decision. Will it be a good look for me going in doing this job? Is it, will it be well received by the public? Don Lemon, or Don Lemon, as Hillary says, Don Lemon had a decision to make, and he went in there and chose a side.
Yeah, but I think that with you, it doesn't sit well with me. Look, sometimes people report and they have opinions when they report, and I don't actually mind that as long as they're not government funded like we have with the BBC. I think that actually you can have a slant on what it is you're reporting on. I don't feel comfortable with journalists, even whether we agree with them or not, being arrested, because I also think it gives fuel to therefore them being martyrs as well if we happen to be on a different side. So I do think that although there is a good argument to say a bit of activism going on there, he is trying to report, and you don't have to agree with him to feel uncomfortable with that course of events.
Yeah, I agree with you, actually. I don't like the guy. I think he's a lefty lunatic who, he's just a menace, but I don't agree with arresting journalists, even though he has got an agenda. I don't think it's a good look. And I don't think it would stand up in court either. I think he'll get off. Right, let's speak now to the Deputy Director of Advocacy at the Freedom of the Press Foundation, Adam Rose. Adam, good evening. Thanks for your company. I can probably guess what you're going to say, being from advocacy at the but what's your take on this whole saga?
Sure. Well, the First Amendment here protects a number of things. There are 5 major principles to it, including freedom of the press, freedom of religion. In general, though, it also protects the right of people to have a point of view. That's totally okay. And while professionally, with ethics, we may argue about that role of the point of view in journalism, the reality is that there is no such thing as a view from nowhere. So let's set aside that for a moment and focus on what actually happened. And this video that you've been seeing on a loop over and over and over, I actually don't see Don Lemon interrupting a service in progress. You don't see any worshipers. You don't see anyone preaching. What you do is you see him asking questions as a journalist after people had already interrupted a worship service. And so there were other people who did disrupt that service who were indicted when the government first requested those indictments. Those are important questions that need to be decided in a court of law. But what's ridiculous is to try and go after the journalist who followed along and observed and reported. He did not actually interrupt. I don't know if we're watching the same video here, but I think I'm watching your feed over and over and over. Show me where a journalist is actually interrupting the service. You can disagree with his questions. I can disagree with his questions. That's fine. What did he actually do? He has a First Amendment right to ask questions. And, these worshipers have a First Amendment right to their services. But he wasn't the one violating that.
I guess the argument is he was part of the signal group which the protesters were using to organise this invasion of the church, and he went in with them.
Well, journalists go into semi-public forum all the time. We go into shopping malls and we go into places of worship. If he was asked to leave and he fought and he tried to stay, well, then we might have a very different conversation here. But what we have is a reality that the government did try and get him indicted, and the judges on the ground, the magistrates locally, said absolutely not. They tried again. The judges said no again. They tried a third time, and they went to a higher panel of senior judges. And this is almost unprecedented that they would have done that. And even that panel of judges said absolutely not. It is really clear here what the law is, and it's also very clear here what the facts are. What we really have is an administration that has its sights set on certain people. Maybe it's because of points of view, maybe it's for whatever other reasons. But the reality, the actual facts that we see here are that even the judges who would normally handle this said no. Ultimately, what happened was they went to a grand jury. And this old joke in this country is that a prosecutor could indict a ham sandwich. So it's not a very hard thing to indict a Don Lemon. Any prosecutor could get that. It's not going to hold up in court. That part is ridiculous. But what's more important, I think, now are the implications, the chilling effect, and the intimidation of journalists who are just doing their job. It doesn't matter if someone's point of views are left, right, center, or anything else. What matters is this guy was just doing his job, one that is constitutionally protected. And at the end of the day, now Don Lemon and other journalists, including Georgia Fort, who was also arrested today, will have to deal with consequences of this exact incident and case that are inappropriate. And other journalists are now sent a chilling message that this government is willing to violate the First Amendment, willing to go around judges in the court system here, which is a co-equal branch of government, and willing to try and intimidate and chill the rights of people who, honestly, they're the only reasons we know what's going on. These people are doing our job. Whether or not we agree with their opinions, they are our eyes and our ears, just as you are. And so, to arrest any journalist who's just out there trying to report means that you and I are worse off. We are poorer for it because we don't really know what's going on, even if that is biased.
Okay, I agree with you, Adam. Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think arresting journalists is wrong. However, I will say, as a journalist, I've been a journalist for 15 years. I've worked at the biggest national newspaper in the UK. Blah, blah, blah. I will say, journalism in the past 5 years, many journalists all around the world have failed to do their most basic duty. You look at the likes of, I don't know, Piers Morgan, who didn't even bother to question anything during COVID. He now rose back and says, oh, sorry about that, you know, I was just going along with it. Mate, you were a journalist. You failed. You had one job. It was the one test of your lifetime and you failed. People like Don Lemon did the same. So many other journalists failed during COVID. They failed during the Russia collusion hoax. They failed during all sorts of stuff. They have the profession of journalism, I argue, Adam, and maybe you'll disagree, has taken a massive hit in recent years because so many journalists like Don Lemon, and I don't agree that he was arrested, but people like Don Lemon have failed their profession.
Well, I don't disagree that the profession of journalism can do a better job. It can always do a better job. Opinion journalism and points of view are a part of the game, and for better or for worse. Let's go back to that First Amendment, though, and think about what these principles are all about. This didn't come out of thin air a few years ago. The First Amendment was one of the foundational principles of this country in the 1780s, and when that was created to, improve our Constitution and literally be the first thing amended to it, back then they weren't thinking about protecting CNN or Don Lemon or the New York Times. They weren't thinking about Piers Morgan and television at all. That didn't exist. What they were thinking about are people like Benjamin Franklin, who was publishing a newspaper a couple of times a week, and he had a very strong point of view, and his opinion was actually very anti-British. They were thinking about Thomas Paine running pamphlets periodically. These were not the kinds of mass media that we see today, but the rights have been persistent and consistent for literally centuries at this point. So, I welcome that sort of criticism. I'm actually a very vocal critic of journalists as well in terms of their ethics, in terms of the quality of their reporting at times, but that's personal. And those are ethical debates that we can have earnestly and separately from a government coming in, abusing the First Amendment, scaring other journalists. And at the end of the day, we have this David versus Goliath situation where enormous amounts of my taxpayer dollars, our resources, are being spent chasing people around the country. 24 police showed up to arrest Don Lemon last night. Yeah. This guy would have shown up with an email. Why are all these resources being spent to try and scare and intimidate journalists? Let's call this what it is. It's intimidation.
Yeah. All right, Adam, great stuff. Fascinating speaking with you. Deputy Director of Advocacy at the Freedom of the Press Foundation, Adam Rose. Actually, I think Don Lemon, I think he probably enjoyed being nicked and arrested. It gives him a big PR boost. His name's everywhere. Let's be honest, he wasn't really making much traction before tonight. I think the church invasion was probably the biggest thing he's done to get attention in the past couple of years. He tried to get a show on X with Elon Musk, and Elon just destroyed him in his first interview and said, actually, Don Lemon, you're a bit of a lemon. So your X contract's been cancelled. I'm sure Don Lemon tonight and his PR team and whoever works with him are actually probably quite secretly happy that he got arrested. Right, let's get stuck into some your says. gbnews.com/your say. Lots of you getting in touch on Chagos. The big exclusive tonight on the Late Show Live is I think we are weeks away from the Chagos Island deal, Keir Starmer's surrender deal being torpedoed, gone, ripped up, because the State Department is going to be writing to the UK government, the Foreign Office, on Monday, we believe, expressing their frustration, their anger that they were allegedly duped by the UK government into going along with the Chagos surrender. That's coming next week. Lots of you getting in contact. Beefeater, good evening, Beefeater, great name. You've said, the traitors called Labour are selling us down the river with the Chinese Chagos giveaway. It's the last straw. Yes, the cherry on top is the embassy in London. What more proof is needed to get rid of these traitors? Peter has said, dear oh dear, the farcical Chagos deal is now derailed. More embarrassment for Labour. This seems like death by 1,000 cuts. Starmer, Lammy and Reeves have been the worst threesome in history. Glynis, hello Glynis, thanks for your company. You've said it would be great if Trump scuppers the Chagos deal. I only hope our treacherous government doesn't pull a fast one and still goes ahead with it. Bernadette, hello Bernadette, you've said, I bet the Chagosians are partying, bless them, whoop whoop. Yeah, but they're still stuck in Crawley, aren't they, in West Sussex? I don't think they'll ever be allowed back on Chagos because the Brits kicked them out. And D. Lunn, hello Mr. Lunn, I'll call you that. You've said, I do hope the Chagos Islands are saved. Well done, Rob. That's Rob Midgley. Another U-turn for Starmer. Some more on Don Lemon. Guy says, that's not freedom of the press, that is sacrilege. Under the sanctity of the church, people should be left in peace. Tim says, don't bring religion into it. You're either legally meant to be in a country or you're not. And if you're not, get out. Knocker says the question with Don Lemon is, should he be allowed to protest or be an activist and use his protection as a journalist as cover? I think not. The line has been crossed. Caroline says a church is a gathering place, a place to gather to praise, pray and worship. No one should be barging into them to protest or try and demonise the people there. Actually, I agree with you, and I go back to my old point that Don Lemon had a judgment call to make there. Even if he was allowed to go in there as a journalist, do you really want to go in there and interrupt a church service? It's not a good look. Catherine, hello Catherine, you said churches need to be treated as sacred buildings. Political activists should not be allowed to intimidate the people inside them. Thank you for those. Keep them coming in. I'll try and get through some more before the end of the hour. As I've just been talking about, GB News can exclusively reveal tonight that the US State Department will be writing to the UK government imminently with their new policy position on the Chagos Island surrender. That follows the major intervention from President Trump on Truth Social a few weeks ago. Earlier on the show, I spoke to spokesperson for Friends of British Overseas Territories, Robert Midgley.
The UK government haven't taken Trump's Truth Social post seriously enough to say, yes, that's diplomacy, yes, that's official policy.
Just remind us of the post.
So he posted about 2 weeks ago now, saying the Chagos Islands was an act of stupidity and the deal shouldn't be going through, but the UK hasn't taken that seriously enough. So what they have been taking seriously enough is Marco Rubio's post from May 2025. So they keep referring it back, and number 10 is definitely spinning right now, saying, well, he said that then.
What was the post from Rubio?
His post solidified the American agreement to the deal. So they obviously want to go back to that and say, well, he said that then, but we haven't had an official diplomatic channel message since then. So the main aim this week has to be finding out from the State Department what the official stance is now. So we finally had a meeting with the pen holders in the State Department who confirmed to me today that they will be imminently writing officially to the FCDO to confirm their new policy stance towards Chagos Islands, which will be following Donald Trump's stance from Truth Social. So I've got a few notes here that, if you don't mind, I'll just run through. So to start with, they didn't buy the British legal argument. So the British had been saying you have to hand over the Chagos Islands because it goes against the International Telecommunications Union. We can't run the electromagnetic field or whatever it was. And that also the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Seas, according to them, you have to give over sovereignty. So they said they've looked into all the legal stuff now, and it's complete rubbish. So because there are military exemptions, Article 48 and 298, which exempt the Chagos Islands from being held accountable by the UN.
Hillary's here, Angelina's here. Guys, this could be the start of the end of Chagos. It could be ripped up, consigned to the dustbin of history, the treacherous surrender indirectly to the Chinese. Stuff it. Christo, what's your thoughts?
I think this needs to happen. I mean, I think that this has been so glaringly obvious that no one wanted this who had any kind of common sense. Why would we hand over sovereignty over something that is so strategically important for the defence of ourselves and our allies to Mauritius, who would be under pressure from China and Russia? I thought that the letter, actually, a couple of weeks ago as well, from I've just been rereading it, actually, from the exiled minister, Ms. Lee Mandarin, who wrote to Donald Trump, outlining this in the most impassioned way, saying, look, unfortunately, Mauritius can't be trusted, but also Mauritius are part of an anti-nuclear deal within Africa, which would mean that if, even with the lease terms that we have, if the naval base there, the Diego Garcia base, would need to be used for any kind of strategic nuclear threat, well, that would mean it would be impotent in such an instance. Why on earth are we doing this? And so I really, really hope that your exclusive pans out and that actually this is binned, because it's nonsense.
It is absolute nonsense, and we were paying for it. The British taxpayer was actually going to pay for them to do this.
I know, and Trump didn't even know that.
That was the most ridiculous point. President Trump had no clue about that, I'm absolutely certain.
Angelina, did you know we're paying for it? We're paying 30 billion.
I just read that, actually, and that's absolutely insane. It really is. And
to pay to give something back to the Chinese.
Yeah, that's insane. And look, even during Keir Starmer's visit, the Chinese state media I saw that they read that they were using different pronouns, I guess, for Keir Starmer, one that lowers his status compared to Xi. So it's not like China's out there respecting the United States or the UK and their power and their leadership. And I think it's definitely something that we should, definitely keep an eye on and have a military base continue to operate there.
Just to say, it's going to Mauritius, but it's not going back to Mauritius because Mauritius never had it. Right. Mauritius never owned the islands in the first place. It's a complete scam. The whole thing's a scam. I don't know what's going on. It stinks like kippers at breakfast. The Mauritius Prime Minister was nicked about 2 years ago with loads of British visas, blank visas, loads of cash. I think he's been convicted now. Keir Starmer's best friend, Philippe Sands KC, who's a lawyer buddy of Starmer, he was representing and still is representing Mauritius in this long battle for Chagos. It's just completely bizarre. As I said, completely stinks. Sorry, Hilary, go on.
No, I was actually going to say to actually hand it back into the Chinese sphere, the British taxpayer not only paying for it, but the Chagosians, they didn't even want it. So the thing is who is it actually pleasing? I don't think President Trump was aware of all of this, let alone obviously the absolute military significance, let alone the fact that the US does have a base there. I think that's the big issue. I don't think that he was really aware or the administration wasn't paying close enough attention to it.
And Christo, I've said before as well, what a massive hypocrite Keir Starmer is. Greenland is for the Greenlanders. The future of Greenland should be down to the Greenlanders. All right, mate. Well, the Chagosians were kicked out in the 70s, and you've sold them down the river without even so much as consulting them.
Absolutely, because of course every single time that Keir Starmer attempts to take a position on anything, something comes back to bite him on the backside, because of course then we are reminded of the fact that he has no ideology and doesn't believe in anything. But I can't help but laugh, because I remember a couple of weeks ago the way you described, Ben, this coming about, which was Philip Sands and Keir Starmer in a wine bar in Islington with their expensive red wine, thinking of ways in which they could uphold international law, and that's how this deal ended up coming about. And I think you were probably spot on. Unfortunately, that wine bar is probably closed now due to the tax hikes, but it was probably there at the time.
Yeah, what a joke. And do you know what President Trump says about international law? He says, we are the law. We are the law. Stuff it. We're not listening to the international law. Imagine listening to the ICJ. It's just a joke. It's just a joke. The whole thing stinks, as I said, and hopefully with this intervention now from the US government, this is the beginning of the end of Chagos, and hopefully, some would argue, the beginning of the end of Starmer and Labour. I think this Chagos defeat would be one defeat too many. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live.
I want to show the people what it takes to go from private citizen to being a First Lady again.
The First Lady's new documentary/film Melania has been hitting cinemas worldwide today. GB News has seen it, and there's more beneath the surface than you might expect. But first,
we have a lot of very big, very powerful ships sailing to Iran right now, and it would be great if we didn't have to use them.
Breaking tonight, Iran has accused President Trump of making belligerent threats. I'd argue he doesn't make threats, he carries out with his rhetoric. A couple of B-2 bombers coming your way last year. Could we be seeing that again? Are we moments away, maybe days away, from another US intervention in Tehran? That's next on The Late Show Live. Right, as I was just saying, Iran is openly testing Donald Trump tonight because they are defying the president's demands that the Islamic Republic, the despot Islamists, abandon nuclear weapons, with the country's foreign minister insisting missiles and defence capabilities, quote, will never be subject to negotiation. OK, so they're refusing to back down. Iran has also insisted they are ready for war, good luck with that, and say they will not be holding any further talks with the United States until President Trump drops his, quote, belligerent threats. With me now is Democratic analyst Ari Aramesh. Ari, nice to see you. Iran talking the talk. Can they walk the walk against the United States, Ari?
A lot of hot air, and this is a paper tiger. Look at what happened to them this past summer. 12 days of war with the Israelis, and they shot down, what exactly? Not even a kite. This is the, and by the way, I was just looking at the little sort of the banners that you have here. Only Fox News and GBN correctly call the regime as is, Islamic Republic. They just don't refer to it as Iran. And congratulate you and your editorial board on that. This is the Republican version, and Republican I mean lowercase r, a version of ISIS. It's a radical Islamist regime in a form of a republic in which the president, the somewhat elected person, has almost no power. It's a supreme leader, the caliphate, on a Shiite version of it, though, so they don't have a caliph. It's the Ayatollah Khamenei. So they understand force and they respect might. I'm a Democrat, but I got to tell you, President Trump knows how to speak with this crowd. He's done well. I think at the end of all the offers of these sort of extending the olive branch and saying they're going to talk and so on and so forth, we've sent an armada to the Persian Gulf. The carrier strike group Abraham Lincoln is out there with two cruisers, with one cruiser and two destroyers. There are additional naval assets there. There's additional air assets going there. About 55 to 60,000 military personnel now in Central Command area of responsibility. Now, one might wonder, is President Trump going to make his promises come true? He said to the Iranian people that we are locked and loaded behind you. He said to the Iranian people that go take over government institutions, help is on the way. He told the Islamic Republic, this radical regime, that if you shoot people, the United States will shoot back. These are really clear signs of support for the Iranian people. I mean, Obama and Biden, even President George Bush 43, would say, oh, we support the ambitions of the Iranian people and so on and so forth. But they never said what the president said. Very quickly, though, he's also talked about nuclear negotiations. He's talked about Iran coming to the diplomatic, table and so on and so forth. The Turks, who want to be the sort of the flag bearer of the new Islamic Front, apparently in the region, they have offered a trio, sort of a trifecta between President Trump, President Erdogan of Turkey, and President Pezeshkian of Iran, who at best is a junior accountant in that regime. Because again, the supreme leader runs the show, not the president. The president wouldn't even have, if the supreme leader told him to change his socks to, let's say, red dots, he would have to abide by the supreme leader's, command. So that's the level of authority that man has. But I think at the very end, President Trump has got something up his sleeve, and I really hope after 47 years of having a radical, terrorist-supporting, terrorist-producing, and terrorist-creating regime, anti-Western, anti-American, anti-Israel, anti-UK, you name it, they're anti. Let's hit them hard. Let's do away with it. Iran ain't Iraq. Iran ain't Syria. You got a population that's pretty pro-Western. Let's capitalize on it.
Yeah, indeed. It's not just the Iranian people who will benefit from the fall of this regime. It is the West. It's the UK. MI5, our domestic security intelligence service back home, they said the other day they've foiled about 20 Iranian-linked terror plots in the last couple of years. I know loads of Iranian sleeper cells. They've been accused of going to bomb the Israeli embassy in London and so on. A couple of them have come on small boats, the refugees. Ari, thank you so much for your company. Hopefully we'll catch up soon. Maybe it will be after the fall of the regime. That's Ari Aramesh, Democratic analyst. Joining me in Washington now in the studio is Khosrow Isfahani, a journalist and Iran specialist who worked in the country for nearly 12 years as a human rights defender. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
What do you think is going to be happening in the next week or so? Are you expecting B-2 bombers to be taking a hold of Iran again, as we saw last summer?
That's what most of the Iranians are holding their breath for. President Trump has promised the Iranians that help is on its way, and we are seeing that help is stationed in the region. Every Iranian that you talk with inside the country, they tell you that they don't sleep until dawn because they expect the strike to arrive between midnight and dawn.
Wow.
And it's not a single person, multiple people have told me that.
Wow, that's incredible. Who do you want to take over if and when the Ayatollah falls? Reza Pahlavi, or is that the consensus? The exiled crown prince?
One thing has been made very clear. Millions of people over the past couple of weeks have taken to the streets in Iran. They have faced guns and bullets. They have sacrificed a lot. At least 36,000 people were killed during 2 days. 2 days. And they have had a single chant. They were chanting the name of the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. And there is this running joke among Iranians. Those who want a restoration of the monarchy are chanting Javid Shah, long live the king. And those who want another type of governance, they are chanting that Supreme Leader Khamenei howl louder because Pahlavi is returning. People are united in seeing Pahlavi as the only person, as the leader of the opposition that can lead Iran through the transition period, keep the country together, bring it safe to the next port.
Yeah, he was in Washington, D.C. A few weeks ago. He was saying, look, I have a team ready, I have a plan ready, I'll be transitional, we'll get back to democracy and we'll make Iran great again. You just mentioned there the bravery of the Iranian people, 30,000 plus slaughtered by their own leaders, their own government in just a couple of days. The bravery is astounding, but they're putting their lives on the line for future generations, for the future of their country, for their children, their grandchildren. Have you seen or heard of anything similar to the slaughter? I mean, it can be described as a genocide. You know, the Palestine guys like to bang on about genocide. This is a genocide, 30-odd thousand in just a couple of days, you say.
2 points. One, Iranians have been on the front line of fighting against Islamist fascism across the Middle East. We have shed a lot of blood. We have sacrificed so much. We have buried so many people. I have personally buried so many people in this fight. I have watched people being killed in executions, being killed on the streets, unarmed protesters. We have been fighting this fight for 5 decades and the world has not come to our aid. It's time for the world to wake up and stand with Iranians in this battle. You mentioned that where we are headed, Iranians want something very clear. We want a secular democracy in our country that respects human rights and embraces its neighbors. Yes, we have sacrificed a lot, but we are determined in this fight. The regime can kill us. There was this woman, mother of a slain protester, the other night in Dusseldorf. She gave a speech that you can kill as many as you want, but we are a strong nation. We are millions of people. Even if one of us lives, she is going to dance on your grave. That's the determination that Iranians are putting on the line. At the same time, in Western capitals over the past 2 years, since October 7th, we saw lunatics marching on the streets, repeating the slogans of Hamas, repeating what terrorists have been saying for decades, wanting to erase Israel off the face of the earth. And they delivered nothing. Israel finished what it set out to do, finished what it had to do, brought all hostages back. Israel was going to defeat Hamas in the next step, hopefully, and Iranians are going to defeat the Islamic Republic.
Yeah, indeed. And as I said to my previous guest, it's in the interest of the entire Western world. Your brave people, those brave citizens in Iran, the men, the women, the girls, the boys, they are putting their lives on the line, not just for the future of your country, but for the West as well, including the UK, who has been highly affected by the shenanigans, by the menacing Islamic regime you have there in Iran. So thank you to you, thank you to your people, and I hope President Trump sticks by his word and help is coming. I think it is. I think it's coming next week. Thank you very much. That's Khosrow Isfahani, journalist and Iran analyst, and hopefully you'll join us again soon.
Thank you.
Right, gbnews.com/your say. Let's take a quick look at some of the other main news stories dropping here in America. Breaking right now, rioters are destroying parts of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility in Los Angeles. That's the ICE facility. Wow, look at those pictures on your screen. With federal agents reportedly in full retreat. We'll be monitoring that story and bringing you any updates as soon as we get them. Elsewhere, a judge has ruled that Luigi Mangione will not face the death penalty if he's convicted of killing the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. He's pleaded not guilty to all federal and state charges. Elsewhere, Queen guitarist Brian May says the band won't be touring in the United States. He said that it's become a dangerous place. It follows concerns about extra border checks and political tensions over the Trump administration's immigration clampdown. Meanwhile, to some news out of Hollywood.
What else could we be forgetting?
Really sad news, actually. Catherine O'Hara, the Emmy-winning actor who starred as Kevin's mother in Home Alone, has died, aged 71. A statement from the Creative Artists Agency says she passed away peacefully following a brief illness. And Macaulay Culkin, who of course played Kevin in Home Alone, he's released a touching tribute tonight on social media as well. Elsewhere, back in Washington. Yes, I love this. I love it. I love it. President Trump has signed an executive order to bring IndyCar racing to the streets of Washington, D.C. this summer. The event, dubbed the America 250 Grand Prix, will form part of celebrations marking 250 years of the United States, with officials hoping it will rev up tourism and the local economy. I'm sure it will. And do you know what? I'm going to bring my two boys over because they will absolutely love this. The race is expected to take place in August. Wow, there we go. What a busy night, but still ahead on The Late Show Live.
I want to show the people what it takes to go from private citizen to being a First Lady again.
Behind the poise, behind the power, Melania. It's a new film out. We've seen it, and we'll bring you the details everyone else has missed. This is The Late Show Live. No breaks, remember. Back in just a tick.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There will be some sunshine around this weekend, but for a fair few it's going to be pretty limited, with often cloudy skies and further outbreaks of rain. Through this morning it's a wet picture across the eastern parts of Scotland, some persistent rain and some hill snow as well. Also outbreaks of rain across some parts of northern England, Wales and particularly western England. Further east, some drier, brighter, sunnier weather to be had, perhaps turning a bit cloudier and a bit wetter later on. Also a fair deal of dry weather towards the northwest of the UK. Temperatures around average for the time of year, just about getting into double figures towards the south. A few degrees lower than this further north, but here temperatures will be slightly higher than they have been through much of this week. As we go into this evening, we stick with the rather damp theme down the eastern side of Scotland, and that nagging southeasterly wind that we've had for so long continues as well, so that's going to make it feel quite raw at times if you're heading out later on. Drier, clearer skies towards western parts of Scotland and across parts of Northern Ireland too. Much of England and Wales is staying pretty cloudy with further outbreaks of rain, still perhaps clinging on to some clearer skies across parts of East Anglia and Kent. Then, as we go overnight, the cloud and the outbreaks of rain, while they continue, they become a bit more widespread for many of us. So a fairly damp night to come, not much in the way of clear skies. As a result, unlike last night where there was a touch of frost around, where we saw some clear breaks, we're not really going to see any frost through tonight. Temperatures generally holding up a fair few degrees above freezing. And then as we go through tomorrow, there could be a few pockets of mist and fog here and there first thing, but generally we're looking at a largely cloudy start. There will be a few outbreaks of rain, perhaps the cloud breaking up and the rain being a little bit lighter than today. So should be some glimmers of sunshine, some drier weather, particularly across parts of Northern Ireland as we go through the afternoon. Temperatures, well, similar to today really. Bye-bye.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Here we go again.
Well, there we go. A new documentary following Melania Trump has premiered in cinemas worldwide, offering what is a rare insight into the life of the US First Lady. So in the film, it was released today, Melania pledges to use her influence and power to help those in need, including meeting a former Hamas hostage whose husband remained captive at the time of filming, but was freed just 12 days after President Trump returned to office. Melania, in the film, also highlights her work supporting children through the Be Best and Fostering the Future initiatives. But what does stand out actually most in this film has been missed by, I reckon, most other commentators, and it's her deeply personal safety fears, which are revealed for the very first time on camera. Following, of course, the attempted assassination of her husband, President Trump, in Pennsylvania last year, Melania describes how her son Barron would refuse to leave the car during planned public stops on the inauguration route, and her eventual relief when the inauguration's public element was moved from open streets to a secure indoor arena. Joining me live now in the studio is my panel. They're back with me, Hilary Forbridge and Angelina McCarthy, and Christo's here as well, I think. Christo, hello. Hilary, this has been released today. You probably haven't seen it because it's fresh on the streets. However, as I said, we have seen it, and it offers a rare glimpse into life behind the First Lady and her operation. And as I said, it shows her deeply fearful attitude towards her family and President Trump and her son Barron as well. She's scared, basically. She's scared of these left-wing nutters.
Yeah, she has absolutely every right to be scared, of course, and with Barron not wanting to get out of the car, that's completely justified. We did not know, obviously, after Butler, Pennsylvania, that there wouldn't be something else again, so I think that's very justified. What I have heard about it, actually, and I was going to be seeing it tonight, and of course then you wanted me in studio, so I was going to be seeing it in Georgetown, is that you can really also see her concern for the elegance and the dignity of the office, and I think that's really important, and that's something that she brings, that touch of elegance and sophistication, which I think is also something that's very valuable. But with regard to the hostages, also don't forget something else she did. She's done some things that were quite serious. Remember when she wrote the letter to Putin with regard to the children that have been kidnapped and taken to Russia? So I think she's made some very serious moves, and I think those are also shown in the movie, from what I understand from the reviews. Yeah,
Angelina, whilst President Trump is accused of disgracing the office of president because he's brash and, he fires on the head, I think I agree with Hilary. Melania she's elegant, she's fashionable, she's classy, I argue. What's your take? Is she doing the office of the First Lady justice?
Look, I was really excited actually for this documentary to come out. I haven't seen it yet. Having said that, I have read a lot of the commentary online, and what it's coming off across as is just a really big puff piece for the office of the presidency, right? Donald Trump's ratings are taking a tank, and Melania is someone who comes out and voices her opinion and tends to talk when the Trump administration's ratings do slip. So this really felt like, and again, I haven't seen it, to be fair, and I do plan on seeing it, but I was really excited for this film to come out because I wanted to see a strong woman in a position of leadership, not afraid, and it feels more of like a marketing puff piece. Have sympathy for me.
Christo, she opens up about the loss of her mother, who died on January the 9th, which is a few days before the inauguration. There's a scene where she visits a church in New York City to pay her respects and light a candle for her mum, and she says that life is different without her. Also featured in the film is a behind-the-scenes clip of Melania speaking to Brigitte Macron of France, Emmanuel's missus, to discuss how they can work together to improve the lives of children. And actually that is prominent in the film, her love for children, her dedication to trying to improve the lives of kids, Christo.
Well, that's what I want to know, and I really the stuff about the grief that she felt about her mum, the other stuff that you alluded to about her fears, about her safety. I'm fascinated by Melania. I really am. I'm fascinated by her story because she literally was on was a very, very humble upbringing in Slovenia. Didn't have any wealth, and has elevated herself to one of the most powerful women in the world. Not only that, she is absolutely gorgeous and always looks absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, some of the reviews here have not been great. Unsurprisingly, from some of the commentary here, a gilded trash remake mistake, says The Guardian. A ghastly film, says The Independent. And not very many people have gone to see it. Apparently there were complaints at an Islington cinema for showing it, and it only had a few people who actually turned up. However, I think that the real test will be that obviously Amazon put money into this, and they will be streaming it on there. And it is on there that I think people will watch it, because of course they'll be in their living rooms, and I think people are fascinated enough by her to watch it. Even if they don't like her, I think they'll watch on a streaming channel, definitely.
Yeah, I'll watch it. Again, we watched it today. It was great. It's fashion is heavily featured. Of course, she's a very classy lady. And at the end of the film, she says, and it was a great quote, she says, "I'll always move forwards with purpose and, of course, with style as well." So, yeah, go and see it. Although the first day's ticket sales in View cinemas in Scotland were apparently only 20 people in Scotland bought tickets at View cinemas, at least. So the Scots not a big fan.
It's a weird time of year to actually release it. It's freezing cold. Who wants to go out? And not only do we have this frigid snowstorm in Washington, D.C. and people not on the roads, it's a very bad time for a movie to be released.
Yeah. -15, isn't it, Hillary, in Washington, D.C.?
And then the last but not least, with regard to her caring about children, one thing I think it's a pity it didn't feature enough is what a brilliant job she's done with Barron. Because from every single account, everywhere you turn, he's a fine young man, and I think that could have been featured a little bit more in here, because there's tremendous interest in Barron as well.
Oh, that applies to both Trump and President Trump and Melania as well. You can kind of judge the litmus test for a human being, for an adult, is like how well have you raised your kids? Are they polite? Are they
courteous? Like Hunter Biden, they could be like Hunter.
Yeah, are they going to be a crackhead like Hunter Biden? You know, who we all know what Hunter's been up to, or a nice, respectable couple of children who are running international businesses. They dress well, they're polite, they're very courteous. I've met Eric Trump before a couple of times. He's a very nice guy. So, yeah. Right. Thank you, Christo. Appreciate it. Let's get through a very quick couple of your says. News Junkie. Hello, News Junkie. You've said, Ben, it appears the Rolling Stones are Trump supporters. Their music appears on the Freedom 250 Grand Prix advert, and it's the first bit of music in the Melania film. I don't think they are. I think the Rolling Stones tried to sue Trump and his campaign in 2016 and 2020 for playing Can't Always Get What You Want on campaign trails. So I'm not sure they are Trump fans. Maybe they changed their mind after seeing what ICE are doing. Maybe not. And Mel has said, "Hi Ben, loving the programme. I'm a newbie to GB News and I'm loving it." Yes, Mel, welcome along. Thank you. You've said, "I just want to say we give everything away and allowing foreign countries just to take the mickey out of us. I bet the EU leaders and the Chinese love that soft soap Starmer. I agree he hates us in the UK because we want our human rights to come first." Thank you, Ben. Loving the programme. Mel, thank you for tuning in to GB News. You and so many more people are tuning in en masse, so many more of you as the months go by, and we really appreciate you. And of course, we appreciate and love all our loyal OG viewers as well. Thank you very much. Right, this is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Joining me on my panel tonight, of course, Hilary Forwich and Angelina McCarthy. We're going to go through the front pages now, hitting the shelves in Blighty tomorrow, starting with the Daily Mail. The headline reads, where is the Mail? Here it is. Andrew invited paedophile to Palace a month after his release. This is the bombshell Jeffrey Epstein files dumped tonight. 3 million pages. Prince Andrew, allegedly, or the former Prince Andrew, Epstein offered Andrew a trustworthy Russian beauty. And Ghislaine Maxwell, jokes that she had 5 redheads for Andrew as well. And Angelina, the other bombshell, let's look at the front page of The Sun if we've got it. The other bombshell is Bill Gates accused of getting an STD after going with some Russian girls and then asking Epstein for antibiotics so he could give them to Melinda, I was about to say Melania, Melinda Gates, because apparently he contracted an STD, allegedly. Your take on that?
Look, I'm one of the first ready to take down the billionaires, ready to take down the government, the establishment. But having said that, there were 3 million documents. 3 million documents dropped. There's just so much information. And none of this information has really gone through its fair due process. So I think that it's fair to be a bit skeptical about what is true still and what is just hearsay. And that, maybe, and also nothing right now is illegal. Whether or not Prince Andrew was with a Russian girl, yeah, maybe he cheated on his wife, but is that proof of illegal behavior, right? Yeah. Well, and the same with Bill Gates. Like, yes, it's damning. Yes, I don't want, drugging my wife because I secretly gave her an STD. That's incredibly juicy gossip, but It doesn't mean that it actually happened.
Andrew, of course, denies all wrongdoing. Hillary, what are you doing tomorrow?
What am I doing tomorrow? I'm flying to the Dominican Republic with Golf Week to go to play in the Rated Challenge.
All right for some. I still need to play golf with you, so when you're back, let me know. What are you doing tomorrow, Angelina?
Tomorrow I'm going out to Madam's Organ, a country bar in DC.
Ooh, get you. Christo, are you still there? What are you doing tomorrow, very quickly, before I say goodnight?
My parents are coming over for roast chicken, which will be lovely.
Oh man, I really miss roast dinners. I haven't had one yet in America. Anyway, guys, thank you for your company tonight. Hillary, Angelina, Christo, and you viewers. I love you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow night for midnight. Sweet dreams. Goodbye.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning, I'm here with your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There will be some sunshine around this weekend, but for a fair few it's going to be pretty limited, with often cloudy skies and further outbreaks of rain. Through this morning it's a wet picture across the eastern parts of Scotland, some persistent rain and some hill snow as well. Also outbreaks of rain across some parts of northern England, Wales and particularly western England. Further east, some drier, brighter, sunnier weather to be had, perhaps turning a bit cloudier and a bit wetter later on. Also a fair deal of dry weather towards the northwest of the UK. Temperatures around average for the time of year, just about getting into double figures towards the south. A few degrees lower than this further north, but here temperatures will be slightly higher than they have been through much of this week. As we go into this evening, we stick with the rather damp theme down the east